pagan gods that Constantino Brumidi surrounded George Washington with were arranged in the pattern of a pentacle, which is an extremely important symbol to alchemists. It's a symbol of all 5 of the alchemical elements. And the idea is that we want to learn to harmonize those elements. So we started playing with some of the sacred geometry of that, looking at what other symbols or what other designs from sacred geometry might fit here. We took the hexagram star, the seal of Solomon, as it's also called, superimposed it over the apotheosis, and what do you know? The points of the hexagram, the seal of Solomon, the six-pointed star, also fit perfectly. Each of the points hit one of the 5 pagan gods, plus the 6th figure that is shown around Washington, which is the goddess Freedom. On top of the U.S. Capitol is a 19.5-foot tall statue of the goddess Freedom. She's the goddess of America, the symbol of America. And in the apotheosis, Brumidi portrays her wearing a very interesting getup. She has the sword of God in her hand. She has the shield of God in her other hand. She wears a crown of stars with a freedom cap that equates with what's called the helmet of salvation. And I bet and she wears on her chest the breastplate of righteousness. And if we could see her feet, I bet she's wearing the sandals of peace. The sword of God, the shield of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the sandals of peace. These are the garments worn by the spiritual warriors, the light warriors in the book of Ephesians. And is another key that tells us that this scene is not earthly, it's heavenly. And what Brumidi is trying to tell us is that there is a spiritual battle that is being fought on earth right now. And freedom is the protector of America. And in order for us to protect freedom, even worldwide, all of us are going to have to put on the light warrior's suit. We're going to have to learn to protect ourselves, not by putting Bluetooth devices in our ear, cell phones in our tooth, artificial hearts and limbs, and all this other stuff they've got planned for us, but rather to develop our spiritual well-being.
Well, there are so many, you detail basically that there are so many stargates all around us, encoded or embedded into the architecture of many cities from around the world.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Basically, symbols of enlightenment, and potentially then the true enlightenment, so to speak, not the faulty one, if we can put it that way. They're all around us, but yet so many seem to be missing the point, and even though they might visit them and look at them and so forth, they are kind of missing the point, if you know what I mean. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think part of it is timing, it's awareness. I have in one of my blogs, I talk about some of my journeys around. Well, of course, I was in Ireland earlier this year, and but in the blog I'm referring to, if you'll just keep scrolling down my site, you'll go to a place I call Stargate Dallas,
yes.
And I show Dallas, Texas, and this amazing Tower of Babel type structure. And inside it is this Fibonacci spiral of this amazing stained glass. The place is called Thanksgiving Square. And in this place, Thanksgiving Square, which I visited with a friend of mine who had lived in Dallas over 20 years and never even knew this place was there. And in the center of Thanksgiving Square is this amazing golden ring. It's a Stargate. It was built in 1996. It's a model of a Stargate. In Detroit, Michigan, we find another bit of sculpture called Transcending that's 90 feet tall. That's another portal or Stargate. This stuff is showing up everywhere, and I think what's happening is that the subconscious of the collective mind of humankind is starting to give us these new symbols of wholeness and unity and even holiness, because the Stargate is a holy symbol. It's not a military symbol like you see in Contact and that ridiculous TV show Stargate. The military has nothing to do with Stargates and all of this. This is all about a spiritual transformation that is required here. It's a spiritual symbol. And I think, one, that the symbol of the Stargate is going to replace the crucifix in the 21st century. And I'm not saying there's going to be a new religion necessarily of the Stargate, but I think there is going to be a spiritual awareness built on the idea of the ring, of the gate, of the portal, of transcendence, and especially of thanksgiving and gratitude. Because gratitude is the attitude that I like to say that opens these gates. And I think it's about timing. It's like there's a time lock on it. It's like nobody decoded the secrets of the apotheosis of George Washington until me and Dr. Gray and Dan Brown came along, and then we figured it out all at the same time. It's kind of the same thing with this artwork that's appearing in major cities all around the world. It's starting to pop up, and what I encourage people to do, which is what I like to do, is when you go to these places, into these civic centers, read what's written on the wall. Sometimes you're going to find some of the deepest metaphysical concepts expressed in either the title of this artwork or literally written in the stone that accompanies these gateways.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
And I was just going to say that now is the time, I think, for us to become aware of this artwork and recognizing that each of these portals that we find in these urban centers are awaiting activation. And very often, especially in Detroit, the portal in Detroit is a place of huge civic gatherings, and I think you'll find that in many of these cities.
Well, and one point here as well is then that the people who are building these obviously have possibly a different take on it. Again, they could be acting just out of a higher force that you mentioned before, that they basically don't maybe 100% know exactly what they do in one way. They get the sculpture given to them through inspiration, and they act on it, so to speak. Or do you think that we're talking about a different class, so to speak, here of people in that sense who know exactly what they're doing, they know what it could be used for, and do you think that they have an idea about, yes, I hope that this will transformate things for the better into something good, or what do you think about that, William?
Well, to answer your question, I'll give you a tidbit I picked up when I was looking at Stargate Detroit. At Hart Plaza, there's the transcending sculpture there, and then right beside the transcending sculpture, which is a classic Stargate type Stargate, except it's like 90 feet tall. And then right beside transcending is a fountain done by a Japanese sculptor named Noguchi. Now, the story I'm going to tell you here was first, I think, documented by Richard Hoagland in one of his books. Noguchi was a Japanese art student, Japanese American, and in 1947, after the U.S. dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Noguchi, being a Japanese person, got very concerned that, well, what if we blew ourselves up and nobody knew that human civilization was here? And so in 1947, he sculpted or envisioned a mile-high sculpture of a human face that he called, if memory serves me right, it was something like Face That Could Be Seen from Mars.
Really?
1947. Then in 1976, the Viking orbiter takes pictures of Mars and sees the face on Mars, right?
Yep.
Noguchi's face, the face that could be seen from Mars, and the face on Mars are almost identical.
Oh, really?
How do you account for that?
Huh.
And how do you account that Noguchi is doing this fountain here at Stargate Plaza, Hart Plaza in Detroit, and it has this amazing tie-in? Were spirits of Martians transmitting something to? Was Noguchi channeling Martians? Is there a spirit that's just kind of running through this, and he picked up on it? And then, lo and behold, in 1976, that same image comes forward. It's really strange. At Hart Plaza, this is the site where Martin Luther King gave the first version of his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. He gave two versions of that. The famous one that everybody knows about was in Washington, D.C., when there were a couple 100,000 or 500,000 people there. In Detroit, before he went to D.C., he gave a version of that speech that had a slightly different ending. And as I read the transcript of the Detroit speech, I was just stunned by what I call the Stargate metaphysics in the speech. Dr. King said, "I have a dream this afternoon that the brotherhood of man will become a reality in this day. And with this faith, I will go out